Hello there and welcome to the News Hour on Trust TV. I'm Sagir Ibrahim. And the Nigerian military says it remains committed to improving the security, safety and protection of lives and properties of Nigerians, despite allegations of bias and unprofessional conduct in some quarters by religious organizations. The Chief of Defense Staff, General Christopher Musa, in an exclusive interview with Trust TV, says despite the overwhelming challenges of limited resources impacting the performance of the military, Nigerians should remain hopeful and supportive of victory against banditry and all forms of insecurity in the country. That's the report.
The Nigerian army has been at the center of the fight against the growing scourge of insecurity across Nigeria, with multiple operations across the 36 states of the Federation and the Federal Capital Territory. The military, over the recent weeks, has been at the receiving end of public scrutiny over the Tudunbiri bombings and the recurrent violent attacks in Plateau State. The Chief of Defense Staff, while acknowledging the commitment of the Nigerian army towards improving national security, doubled down on the neutrality and professionalism of the Nigerian military in safeguarding the country.
If both sides are accusing the army, which means the army has been neutral, that it's worse if one side is saying the army is on its own side. What the armed forces is trained for is to be impartial, and that's what we do wherever we operate. And that's why it's important for people to understand that we are duty bound to ensure that there is peace wherever we are. When the incident started, the military got in, and we're trying to make sure that both sides are kept apart. Good people must join hands to fight evil. The mistake we think is it is only the military should do it. No. Let me tell you a shocking thing. Who are the people funding those guys? Who are the people giving them money? Who are the people giving them logistics to work? People are trading with them.
And information.
And there are people, immediately the troops pass here, people call them and tell them these troops are here, they are this number with so many number of vehicles. There are people that do that. That's their business.
But
and you make good money. We needed some weapons, equipment. The president has approved some funds. We're waiting to, once we're able to get them, we're able to deploy. We have extended our operations, have started fully. We're doing that. But our appeal to Nigerians is, first, please don't demoralize our troops. They are doing so much. I wish we can take them around to see what the troops are going through.
On the Tudunbiri investigations by the military, General C.G. Musa says the findings will be made public when the processes have been concluded, as he calls for public support to motivate the Nigerian army to deliver on its mandate.
The investigation is going on. We don't want to rush them so that they don't oversee anything.
Is there a timeline?
Yeah, very soon. You get.
Soon is in.
I can assure you that once it is ready, it will be the details will be announced. It will be published, so there is nothing to hide. It is difficult for us to do the fighting, and we're coming out again doing the talking. You know, people tend not to believe what we're saying. But the good thing is that, one, I'm sure the Nigerians have now seen that we have an armed forces that is sincere. I mean, we're sincere in all we do. When we make mistakes, we own up.
The full 30 minutes exclusive interview with the Nigerian Chief of Defense Staff will air on Monday, January 29 at 7:30 p.m. on Trust TV. Abdullahi Ahmed, Trust TV News.
And 2 police inspectors have been killed by gunmen suspected to be terrorists who dressed in hijab at a checkpoint in Gurbin Magaria village along Jibia Batari Road in Katsina State. A credible security source said the officers were killed by the suspected terrorists on Thursday evening. He explained that the hoodlums, after killing the police joint border patrol inspectors, carted away their rifles, leaving behind their operational vehicle and tear gas at the checkpoint. Our reporter in the state, Abdullahi Yamadi, gives an update on the attack.
The incidents occurred around 5:30 Thursday evening, and this recent attack sparked fear and apprehension not only among the residents of Jibia and Bazari local governments, but also the entire state, because you may recall that just last week some terrorists riding on motorcycles dressed in hijab opened fire on a police checkpoint at Sakijiki village of Bazari local government, killing one mobile police officer on the spot. So the 2 attacks show that the bandits are highly sophisticated and are changing tactics at every slightest opportunity to deceive security operatives and attack them. In fact, some residents of Gurbi Magaria, where the Thursday's attack happened, are suspecting that it is the same gang that killed a policeman at Sekijiki village, that killed these two police inspectors at their community. So this is the situation. And of course, Gurubi Magaria is a community between Jibia and Bazari local government and on Jibia Bazari Road. And of course, the two local governments have received more than their share of bandits attacks over the last 1 decade. The police public relations officer in Katsina, ASP Sadiq Abubakar, while confirming the attack to Trust TV, said the police inspectors were on border patrol before paying the supreme price. He also said securities on the trail of the culprits, assuring that they will be brought to book soonest. So this is the current situation. And of course, we'll continue to follow this story and report them as the situation unfolds.
The Special Military Task Force Operation Safe Haven says it has arrested some suspects in connection with the recent deadly attacks in Mungu local government area of Plateau State. The media officer of the task force, James Oya, disclosed this in a statement issued in Jos and made available to newsmen on Friday. Oya, who did not disclose the number of the suspects, said the task force also recovered some dangerous weapons during a raid of the area. He condemned the civilian attack on Air Force personnel and military facilities at Kerang community deployed to enforce the 24-hour curfew in the locality. He promised that the OPSH personnel and other security agencies would remain professional in the discharge of their constitutional duties. Also, in the aftermath of the devastating attacks that claimed numerous lives and resulted in substantial property losses, survivors in the Mungu local government areas of Plateau State are sharing their harrowing experiences. The ethno-religious crisis in Mungu unfolded on Tuesday, persisting through Wednesday, with reports highlighting an alarming escalation in the death toll. As the community grapples with the aftermath, survivors are giving first-hand accounts, shedding light on the impact of the tragic events that unfolded. Adu Musa completes the story.
Hundreds of people, including women and children, were reportedly displaced following Tuesday and Wednesday violence, a situation that necessitated the imposition of a 24-hour curfew. The police on Thursday say they have arrested 9 persons in connection to the crisis in Mungu, adding that more personnel will be deployed as part of a special intervention to restore and maintain law and order. Some of the survivors of the crisis narrate their ordeal. We were sitting in our community on Thursday morning when we started hearing gunshots. The gunmen were approaching our community and eventually a bullet hit my hand, causing blood to start flowing. It was a very terrible experience. We are calling on the federal government to rise up to the occasion. What happened in Mungu should not just be condemned, but to investigate the plan against us.
We don't know what we have done to the attackers. What have we done to deserve what we're witnessing today in Mungu? What is our offense? They killed my son for no reason, made his wife to become a widow and his children orphans. We were in the village before this incident, but our houses were burned. We later fled to Mungu town. Now the only room we were managing has also been burnt. We are calling on federal government to deploy more security personnel to save our lives.
The recurring violent clashes on the plateau are signposting a breakdown of social cohesion between members of the community along ethno-religious lines. For now, the situation appears to be under control as survivors pick up the pieces of their lives. Adu Musa, Trust TV News, Jos.
Still on security, but away from the north, the Lagos State Chairman of the People's Democratic Party, Mr. Philip Ivoji, has been abducted along the Lagos-Ibadan Expressway around 6 p.m. on Thursday. The State Publicity Secretary of the party, Honorable Hakeem Amude, confirmed the abduction and urged security agencies and government authorities at all levels to intervene promptly for his release. Ivoji was returning from a stakeholders meeting in Oyo State convened by Governor Seyi Makinde and Ademola Adeleke when the incident occurred. The PDP expressed deep concern over the prevailing issue of kidnapping in the country, calling for decisive actions to address this menace and emphasizing the need for swift efforts to secure Ivoji's safe return to his family. Also, the national chairman of the All Progressives Congress, Abdullahi Umar Ganduje, has expressed confidence in his alliance with former Governor Rabiu Musa Kwankwaso despite the historical political rivalry. During a political event, Ganduje says the APC is set to accept political figures into its ranks due to its growing popularity. He expressed optimism about a positive working relationship with Kwankwaso, citing shared roots and lineage as a foundation for potential reunification.
As of now, we have more senators. Many senators have joined our party. Many members, House of Representatives, have joined our party. And very soon, some governors will join our party. So if we can do this at a national level, why can't we do it at state level? Our hands are open. We are appealing to those who would like to join our party. In particular, we are inviting the governor and his officials to join our party, the APC.
And in response to Ganduje's invitation, Governor Abba Kabir Yusuf of Kano State stated that the invitation did not follow the right channel. Speaking through his spokesman, Yusuf asserted that Ganduje, being a former governor and deputy governor, should be aware of the proper protocol for such communication. Governor Yusuf affirmed his commitment to the NNPP, stating that changing a political party requires careful consideration and cannot be done abruptly. And the Supreme Court has upheld the 5-year sentence of former House of Representatives member Farouk Lawan for receiving a bribe of $500,000 from businessman Femi Otedola. His appeal sought to set aside the February 24, 2022 judgment of the Court of Appeal in Abuja, which sentenced him to a 5-year jail term and discharged him on 2 out of the 3 counts of the corruption charge brought against him by the federal government. In the lead judgment prepared by Justice John Okoro but read by Justice Tijani Abubakar, the Apex Court held that Lawan's appeal was without merit and dismissed it. During the hearing of the appeal at the Supreme Court, Lawan's counsel and senior advocate of Nigeria, Joseph Daudu, had asked the court to allow his client's appeal and set aside the judgment of the Court of Appeal. Counsel to the federal government, Bagudu Sani, urged the court to affirm the judgment of the Court of Appeal and dismiss the appeal. Lawan was convicted and sentenced to prison in 2021 for accepting a $500,000 bribe from businessman Femi Otedola, chairman of Xenon Petroleum and Gas Limited.
It's been a long journey from FCT High Court. They went to Court of Appeal, and the Court of Appeal affirmed the sentence of the FCT High Court on the 3rd count, that he should serve a 5-year term. And that was why he came to Supreme Court. And today, the Supreme Court has affirmed the judgment of Court of Appeal that the 3rd count stands, and is convicted on the 3rd count, and he should serve the 5-year term. So there were 3 issues, and the 3 issues were resolved in the favor of the respondent, who is the federal government.
Still on stories in the judiciary, Bishop Faye Daniel, founder of Irene Christian Family Church, has been sentenced to life in prison for 2 counts of rape and 3 years for sexual assault by a sexual offences court in Lagos. The court acquitted him on 2 other counts of rape and attempted rape. Justice Rahman Oshodi ordered the convict's name to be registered in the Lagos State Sex Offenders Register and mandated him to serve his sentence at the Nigeria Correctional Center in the Kirikiri Maximum Facility, emphasizing the significant risks he poses to society due to the abuse of his dominant character and position within the church.
We have seen that with this judgment, that morality and truth, which is the main fabric of our society, is protected by the judiciary. We have also seen that the pernicious and perversive attitude of men of the cloth to take advantage of their positions of influence over their congregation, this judgment has actually mitigated and exposed these perversive influences. It has also told survivors who have been brutalized, who have been have one way or the other been victimized and traumatized by men of the cloth, that they have a voice, and that when they talk, we will listen and we believe them.
Actually, to every Christian girl who has been taken advantage of by the clergy, this is justice for survival. And this is to send a stern warning to every one of you who think that you can manipulate vulnerable women and girls in the name of the Lord. Survivors will get justice. You will find yourself in a place where you will not be able to escape one day. You can continue to fool everybody, but you will not be able to fool all the people all the time. To every survivor of sexual violence in Nigeria, this is justice.
You're watching the News Hour on Trust TV. Still to come. Nigerians urged to preserve heritage through language promotion. This and of course many more stories after the break. To stay. Thanks for staying with Trust TV, and if you're just joining, this is the News Hour. Now a recap of our major stories. Nigerian military reaffirms its commitment to operating with neutrality as accusations of bias simmer. And days after fresh unrest in Plateau State, Governor Mutfwang visits affected communities as victims recount harrowing ordeal. To more stories now, the United Nations top court declared on Friday that Israel is obligated to prevent genocidal acts in Gaza and facilitate the urgently needed humanitarian aid into the besieged territory. The rulings handed down in a case that has garnered global attention stopped short of ordering a ceasefire, but urged Israel to refrain from any potential genocidal acts during its military operations in the Gaza Strip. The International Court of Justice instructed Israel to take immediate and effective measures to enable the provision of essential services and humanitarian assistance to address the adverse living conditions faced by Palestinians. While the ICJ is not currently assessing whether Israel is committing genocide in Gaza, the court cautioned Israel to take all measures in its power to prevent acts that could fall under the UN Genocide Convention established in 1948. The court emphasized Israel's obligation to prevent and punish any incitement to genocide. The case brought by South Africa accuses Israel of violating the UN Genocide Convention. The court's decision followed 2 days of hearings earlier in the month, where lawyers from both sides debated the interpretation of the convention.
As the South African government, we welcome the decision of the International Court of Justice. We note the court's statement that it is acutely aware of the extent of the human tragedy that is unfolding in the region and is deeply concerned about the continuing loss of life and human suffering, and that the catastrophic humanitarian situation in the Gaza Strip is at serious risk of deteriorating further before the court renders its final judgment. We expect Israel, as a self-proclaimed democracy and a state that respects the rule of law, to abide by the measures handed down by the International Court of Justice.
And joining us now live here in our Abuja studios, we have retired diplomat Haruna Werkani. Welcome to the News Hour, Ambassador. So, first of all, the court has given a decision on the case. Israel is to take all cautions necessary to prevent a genocidal act from happening in the Gaza Strip. However, we know that there's the existing rule of engagement, which is a globally accepted standard, for warring factions according to the UN Convention. Do you think this is enough, or do you think this would be a stopgap measure to prevent issues such as genocide, which some, like South Africa, are saying is already going on in the Gaza Strip at the moment?
Thank you, viewers. And clearly, the International Criminal Court has, to my mind, failed. Failed in the sense that this judgment is more a resolution than what it should come from such a body. The text of the ruling itself is encouraging a country to take all measures within its powers. That is to say, it is discretionary. If Israel says this is not within its powers, it means it's not enforceable. And therefore, you cannot distinguish this from the regular United Nations resolutions that have been passed before now on this issue of genocide. The terms and conditions for genocide are very clear. And in this case, the world believes that genocide has been committed. Therefore, ordinarily, one will expect the court to be more straightforward with its ruling and make it such that it is enforceable. It should also be justiciable. But in all this case, Israel has been given a chance to choose to actually implement or not to implement. That falls very far short of expectations.
Ambassador, now, how actionable are the positions of the International Court of Justice should Israel fail or fall short of implementation?
Well, there's no enforcement.
Why would you say that, Ambassador?
Similar pronouncements, let me say, reduced pronouncements, because they may be called judgments, but in essence, there are resolutions, not different from the United Nations Security Council or even the United Nations body itself, the General Assembly, or some of the bodies of the United Nations, from UNHCR, UNESCO, etc., etc. They have been passing such resolutions calling on Israel or any other country to observe the existing protocols of the Geneva Conventions and the rest of them on genocide and what have you. However, we have seen that countries have serially violated these provisions, violated these pronouncements, and life goes on as usual. And in this case, the originating complaint by South Africa also brings a lot into the mix. Why South Africa, out of 195 member countries of the United Nations, why South Africa? It becomes obvious that South Africa is using its sovereignty to play high-wire politics on the scene so that South Africa's intent to become a seat member of the United Nations Security Council can be adduced for its role in matters like this.
So basically, Ambassador, you're saying it's all politics.
It is.
International politics.
It is high-wire international politics, because if, for instance, the real countries in Africa that should be doing this,
such as
Nigeria's absence on the international scene, continentally and internationally, I think has given South Africa this leverage.
Ambassador, are you saying that Nigeria has abdicated its responsibility,
very well,
role, if you would say, as the big brother of the African continent and taking it back
very well
at this point?
It's a clear indication of the failings of Nigeria as a country. If Nigeria remains the giant of Africa, this kind of action should be coming from Nigeria. Don't forget, when South Africa itself was struggling for anti-apartheid, it was Nigeria that led all that struggles. And it did that with dignity. It did that with candor. It did that with finesse. Today, that is not seen anywhere. And South Africa sincerely cannot represent Africa adequately. 20-some million people representing a population of 1.3 billion is questionable. So this attitude or action of South Africa definitely brings a lot other matter that requires to be analyzed properly. But using sovereignty to achieve a particular goal for nationhood, I think should be done with some caution.
Ambassador,
Israel cannot also be held or pinned down to respect these pronouncements of the ICJ because it's going to be very, very difficult. Israel will tell you, yes, it's an accessionary member of the court, but implementing some of this is going to be difficult.
Ambassador, from your submissions, but first of all, the court stated categorically in quotes, take all measures in its power to prevent acts that could fall under the UN Genocide Convention established in 1948. Well, you've established that it's seeming as if South Africa is playing high-power international politics. But then again, I guess the question on the minds of millions of Nigerians and, of course, viewers across the world would be, what then will be the hope for citizens and residents of Gaza if they will not be able to get justice at the International Court of Justice?
Well, as for Gaza, the citizens of Gaza, we feel very sorry for all because elements of genocide, is it religious, is it ethnic, is it political, is it otherwise, is clearly shown. Now, if the country who is accused of committing this genocide is being asked to do everything within its powers, that is the lexicon that makes it very difficult because taking action within its powers leaves that resolution, I would say. I wouldn't say it's a judgment. I would say it's a resolution. It leaves a lot of gaps. Israel can simply walk away and say, it's not within our powers. You have also said Israel should take every necessary step to stop genocide, which means there has not been one yet committed. It is going forward that the court is saying, take all necessary measures to prevent genocide, whereas genocide has already been committed one way or the other. And then the second part of that resolution equally gives the impression that Israel is supposed to rein in its citizens who might be like settlers. I think that second part of that ruling is targeted at the possibility of violence from settlers who might be angling or expecting to relocate to Gaza that has been left open today. So there is so much that is left to be desired in this ruling, which I would still insist is a mere resolution, because the eating and the test will come in the next few weeks. Let us see, would there be a change? Because from all indications, from body language to political talk, you could see that Israel is not ready to even lessen its actions in Gaza for now. And not just Gaza, but including the West Bank. We have seen the hostilities have been expanding from Gaza to the West Bank and some other places within Palestine. Therefore, the international community should definitely feel ashamed that such a thing can happen in this century and nothing much is done. The key players, America and Europe, are rather quiet, which is an act of acquiescence.
Ambassador, America and Europe, quite mute at the moment. But then again, your position on the standpoint of Nigeria, or the actions and inactions of Nigeria at the moment, is quite an open secret. What would have been your expectations in terms of the actions that Nigeria and the Nigerian government should have taken as the big brother of Africa, which you say is now being taken by South Africa? And how do you think they should have, approached the situation such that it wouldn't have probably gotten to the situation that it has gotten to?
Well, sincerely, the Nigerian foreign policy practice today leaves very much to be desired. We ought to be seen and heard loud and clear on the African continent, on both continental and international issues. Nigeria cannot continue to keep quiet. A lot of things are happening. You find that Nigeria has lost its voice on the international scene, which is not appropriate with our status as the largest economy in Africa. We cannot be promoting the largest economy in Africa and yet not to be seen as a key player on the international scene. Therefore, in this regard, Nigeria ought to have, even if it were statements, we ought to have been seen to say something. Where do we stand as a country?
All right, then. We ought to have made a statement and perhaps shown where we stand. Ambassador, thank you so much for your perspectives and submissions. Of course, because we are pressed for time, we cannot continue with the conversation. Ambassador Haruna Warkani, thank you so much for sharing perspectives on the News Hour.
Thank you, viewers.
Yes, indeed.
Thank you.
Moving on to other stories now, parents have been urged to enhance vigilance within their communities and among family members, particularly infants and growing children. A security expert in Bauchi State has highlighted the alarming prevalence of missing children in various communities. Trust TV's Adam Wimam sent in this report.
Communities in the local government area of Bauchi State are currently grappling with various forms of insecurity, including kidnapping and armed banditry. However, the disturbing situation now is the surge in cases of missing children in some localities. In response to this distressing development, Comrade Abdullahi Yelwa expressed deep concern over the recent discovery of 7 children abducted, presumably for trafficking to the eastern part of the country.
Gone are these days because the society has become so corrupt and porous that some are taking advantages, undue advantage of stealing these child. Is even very lucky of the parents of these ones that these children are still alive and were discovered alive, and that is why we are talking of reuniting them.
He added that parents should be prepared to take care of their children, which is top priority at all times.
Don't just hire and fire or just give people spaces because they pay for rent or they just come to our community to buy a house overnight. We need to know where they come from. We need to establish some background checks about them. Some are criminals that run away from their communities to come and have a hiding place in our places.
Recently, 7 young children were taken from Zango community to be sold into servitude, but were later rescued by the Nigerian police and reunite with their families. This development further underscores the need for proper surveillance in communities. Even our residents now, we can't allow them regardless of strangers around us temporarily. I urge other community heads to be up and doing and be vigilant with their subjects and families, because God gave us children to look after them, not to allow such happen again in Zango community area. We are very much on alert so that shouldn't happen. As a measures, we are trying in surveillance throughout the community and checking whereabouts of the children, even if they were sent to shops and neighboring houses around. I felt bad when I heard that my son got missing. I shouted, went around the community in search of him, but unsuccessful. I reported to the radio station for his whereabouts, but we couldn't get him. Until later, after several months, news broke that he was found with other children in eastern part of the country. We rushed to Kano State and received them. We put eye on our children. Out of mistake, he went to school alone without his brothers. Usually they come back here. I take Okada for them to go home. But one day, Muhammad got missing after school hours. Even the school teachers, they don't know what happened then. We do ask them, it's not their fault, honestly. The need for a collaborative effort in streamlining security and vigilance has been emphasized to prevent more incidents of child abductions, which is fast becoming a trend in Bauchi State. Adamu Imam, Trust TV News, Bauchi.
And residents of Owerri, the Imo State capital, have called for a complete metering of households across the metropolis to enable them pay the amount for power consumed, while lamenting the alleged irregularities perpetrated by electricity distribution companies across the country. They also voiced their concerns over the outrageous amounts demanded by these companies vis estimated bills, despite the poor services they provide. Trust TV's Ajibade Praise tells us more.
The estimated billing by the EEBC and other distribution company of electricity is biting hard on Nigerians. We are in the street of Owerri today to sample the opinions of residents, and this is what they are saying.
I'm not confused. Since I was born, I've never been enjoying electricity in this country. Not. If I wonder how, even, for instance, they take light frequently, and at the end of the day, they will still be bringing light bill. Despite that, I'm not using lights.
For some months now in my area, we've not been seeing light, but at the end of the day, at the end of the month, they just bring bill for us to pay. So I don't think it's a good thing. I think the best thing is to get a prepaid meter for people.
Other residents who spoke on the matter alleged corrupt practices by industry players, adding that the primary reason for privatizing the energy sector has not been met, while lamenting that some few persons are using the sector to enrich themselves at the detriment of the masses through estimated billing rather than prepaid meter system. They equally pointed to the fact that since some neighboring countries enjoy constant and uninterrupted electricity, it was a proof that handlers of the nation's power sector are either incompetent or corrupt.
What we are seeing is as of the old. So I think the corruption issue is at the center of all this and that. And in Nigeria here, what we have is a seller's market and not buyer's market. The buyer cannot influence anything. So as for electricity, if it is not so, EEDC won't be going ahead, severing people's lives, and then trying to follow the steps of obnoxious bidding.
There is no parastatus, there is no organization in Nigeria that corruption is not inclusive in their practice. Nigeria was so blessed, and the problem Nigeria is having is a problem of corruption.
Even Ghana celebrated 24 good hours, almost a year, and all those countries. We are the giant of Africa. Why can't we emulate them?
From the attributions of all the residents who spoke to us this morning, it is clear that they are all tired of the estimated billing. They are calling for urgent solution to the matter, and what they are saying is that prepaid meter be given to all homes across the country. This, they believe, will put an end to the problem. Ajibade Praise, Trust TV News, Owerri.
The chairman of the Senate and House of Representatives Committees on Upstream, Downstream and Midstream of the National Assembly expressed their commitment to enact essential amendments to the Nigerian Extractive Industries Transparency Initiative, NATI Act. This pledge was made during a meeting with the global leadership of the Extractive Industries Transparency Initiative. Here's the report.
The Nigeria Extractive Industries Transparency Initiative, NEIT Act, while aiming to promote transparency and accountability in the management of Nigeria's oil, gas, and mining revenues, has faced several challenges. Some of these challenges include funding, complexity of audits, poor sectorial linkages, aggressive public education and enlightenment, amongst others. Speaking on behalf of the Federal Legislature, Chairman, Senate, and House Committees on Upstream, says the 10th National Assembly will use its power to solve the challenges confronting the industry.
We are committed in achieving it. We must get the job done.
Nigeria must return back to where we used to be. In the next few days, we'll be celebrating 20 years. And for us here, we see it as an achievement.
Our agenda is targeted at introducing key amendments to the Petroleum Industry Act so as to ensure stronger provisions for clean energy transition. We also focus on reviewing the NETI Act to grant NETI statutory powers to implement the findings of their investigation.
Earlier, Deputy Executive Director of EITI, Badi Balde, who led the team, says the purpose of NEITI is to ensure Nigerians benefit from her natural resources. Balde, while commending Nigeria for the implementation of EITI Act, called for the need to review the NEITI Act. On his part, Executive Secretary, NEITI, acknowledged that NEITI has recorded giant stride in achieving slots in the extractive sector of the country.
The senior members of the executive branch have made the commitment to attend to this issue promptly with due care to make sure that work is done in an open and transparent manner, that to avoid undue political interference in that process, but rather to make sure that members appointed to such an important body have the capacity, the technical expertise.
We have already developed a national response comprehensive action plan, which we have shared with all the agencies concerned. And we're going to share them also with the relevant committees to look at, to help your tracking, monitoring, and legislative oversight.
The NEITI boss, while expressing commendation for National Assembly support, says the visit by EITI has been very expository for them.
And the decline in African culture has become a source of worry for many, especially residents of Benue State who have been calling for a cultural reorientation. According to them, cultural indicators like language are going into extinction due to the attitude of speakers who have adopted foreign languages like English against their native ones. Jimmy Atzande reports.
According to the residents, some languages like Tiv would be better appreciated if they are preserved.
We need to encourage parents to begin from the home, teaching their kids our languages in the manner that they understand. Then we also hope that the schools will bring back the teaching of subjects in local languages across the country, so that people, especially science-oriented courses and subjects, these kids can understand better than using foreign languages. No matter how you put it, it's not their language, and there's an extent to which they can assimilate and understand things when they are taught to them in foreign languages.
They say at the moment, most families are not doing their children any good due to their failure to have them speak the language and by implication transmit their cultural heritage to them.
Our culture is our heritage. Your culture gives you your personality. It tells you where you are from. It gives you direction in whatever you're doing in life. Our parents found it worthy to teach us how to speak our dialect, but we are not giving our children that same thing we've been given by our parents.
The residents are calling on parents, especially mothers, to do more in teaching the kids their cultural heritage.
I advise the younger ones to follow their culture, so the Tiv culture especially, or if you belong to any other language, try to embrace your culture for identity, so that you will be served when a social encounter will be identified that this is the language and the tribe that you belong.
Your child is losing his identity because the child is neither a white person nor the tribe you belong to. So I advise mothers today to teach their children how to speak their mother tongue and imbibe their values. That is, dress decently. They said modesty is key in whatever you're doing.
Social linguists are worried that if not properly coordinated, many cultures will cease to exist, especially if the attitudes of speakers continue to devalue the African heritage. Jimmy Azande, Trust TV News, Makurdi.
some cheering developments. The African Continental Free Trade Agreement, AfTA, has been gazetted. The development has fundamentally changed the tariff book in relation to trade with many African countries across different product categories. In an X handle post by Aika We Won by Bank Umlaba, AfTA takes effect from next Wednesday, January 31st, 2024. Let's now join Yusuf Akogu for Business News.
Welcome to Business News. I am Yusuf Akogu. A famous professional services firm, PwC Nigeria, has projected the marginal decline in inflation rate and a 3.1% rise in gross domestic product. The GDP projection by PwC in the 2024 Nigeria's Economic Outlook report on Thursday is lower than the 3.4% which the Nigeria Economic Summit Group has projected. The report also points to a gloomy 2024 with rising poverty levels and the lingering cost of living crisis in the country. It stated that achieving sustainable growth in 2024 requires balancing ambitious fiscal reforms with effective budget implementation. PwC also examined the proposed infrastructure funding, which it said would remain insufficient in 2024. The combined wealth of Aliko Dangote, Abdulsamad Rabiu, and Mike Adenuga has increased by $15.5 billion so far this year. Forbes web tracking platform provides ongoing updates on the net worth and ranking of each individual confirmed to be a billionaire. The value of individual public holdings are updated every 5 minutes when respective stock markets are open. Dangote, Rabiu, and Adenuga saw their wealth almost double to $33.6 billion as at 3 p.m. on Thursday from $18.1 billion on December 29, 2023. The breakdown of the data shows that Dangote fortune rose by $9.1 billion to $18.5 billion. Abdulsamad Rabiu's wealth increased by $2.4 billion to $8.1 billion, and Mike Adenuga's wealth grows by $4 billion to $7 billion. A Lagos-based investment analyst, Ayorinde Akinloye, said the billionaire's wealth is in the value of the listed companies that they own. According to him, if the share price of their companies is going up, their value will also be going up, adding that the return on the stock exchange is outweighing the loss of the US dollar. Nigerian business tycoon Femi Otedola said he will add to his purchase of Dangote Cement PLC shares after his recent acquisition in part helped propel the wealth of the billionaire Aliko Dangote to the highest level in a decade. According to the Bloomberg Billionaires Index, Dangote Cement shares have doubled this month, jumping to $22 billion on Thursday. The cement maker is also seen as a proxy for Dangote's new refinery, the world's biggest of such facilities in a single location. Food commodities remain high despite assurances from the CBN that government is working hard to bring down cost of living. Here are details of the current market prices. Now to the forex market. Naira on Friday closed trading at 900 Naira against the US dollar at the Nigerian Autonomous Foreign Exchange Market (NAFEM). FMDQ, a platform that oversees official FX trading in Nigeria, said the Naira recorded a high of 1,399 Naira and a low of 789 Naira. Meanwhile, the Naira hit a record low at the parallel section of the foreign exchange market. And finally, in business, oil price eased on Friday but remained on course for a second consecutive weekly gain, supported by positive U.S. economic growth and Middle East supply concerns. At the London market, Brent crude sells for $81 per barrel. For the OPEC basket, price steadies at $81 per barrel as well. And that's business. I am Yusuf Akogu.
Thanks to Yusuf Akogu for Business News. Let's now join Emmanuel Fashemi, who is standing by for Sports News.
Action resumes on Saturday, 27th January 2024 at the ongoing 2023 African Cup of Nations with round of 16 games after Thursday and Friday were rest days for all the qualified teams. The Confederation of African Football CAF has scheduled 2 matches for each day during the rounds. And the fixtures, Blue Sharks of Cape Verde will take on Mauritania at the Félix Houphouët-Boigny Stadium, Abidjan. Defending champions Teranga Lions of Senegal battles host Elephants of Cote d'Ivoire at the Charles Konan Stadium, Yamoussoukro. Laurent Pokou Stadium in San Pedro will play host to Atlas Lions of Morocco and Bafana Bafana of South Africa. It's going to be the contest of the Guineas at the Al Hassan Ouattara Stadium, Abidjan, where the Thunders of Equatorial Guinea face Sili National of Guinea. 7-time champions Pharaohs of Egypt will entertain DR Congo at the Laurent Pokou Stadium, San Pedro. 2013 runners-up Stallions of Burkina Faso squares up against Eagles of Mali at the Amadou Gon Coulibaly Stadium, Koho Tohogo. Meanwhile, Saturday 27th January at the Stade de la Paix, Bouaké, Angola confronts Namibia by 6 p.m. to be followed by Nigeria versus Indomitable Lions of Cameroon at Felix Houphouët-Boigny Stadium, Abidjan, 9 p.m. Nigerian time. The two fixtures will kickstart the round of 16 ties at the 2023 African Cup of Nations in Côte d'Ivoire. Italian tennis star Jannik Sinner ended Novak Djokovic's bid for a record 25th Grand Slam title on Friday, crushing the Serb's outstanding 33-match winning streak at Melbourne Park to reach his first Grand Slam final. The Italian fourth seed was on fast by dropping his first set of the competition against the king of Rod Laver Arena, winning the semi-final 6-1, 6-2, 6-7, 6-8, 6-3. 10-time champion Novak Djokovic fought off a match point in the third set tie break, but notched up 54 errors and failed to create a single break point in an subpar display by his stellar standards. The 22-year-old Sinner said he felt he had learned from defeat to Djokovic in last year's Wimbledon semi-finals, the furthest he had previously gone at a major tournament, and had been looking forward to the match. He will now play Russian third seed Dani Medvedev on Sunday, who triumphed over German sixth seed Alexander Zverev 5-7, 3-6, 7-6, 7-4, 7-6, 7-5, 6-3 in a keenly contested second semi-final. Meanwhile, in the women's version, defending champion Aryna Sabalenka will take on Chinese Zheng Qinwen, who blew away Ukrainian qualifier Diana Yamstrinska 6-4, 6-4 to become the first Chinese finalist in a decade at the Australian.
And that wraps up the news hour on Trust TV. Thank you for watching. I'm Sagir Ibrahim. Good night.